Once you live on the water, you don't want to leave it. The serenity of living out here, it's just too good to miss out on.
Bayou Corne it's peaceful, very laid back. The view is gorgeous. This is what we've lived for. This is what we save for. This is our retirement.
God gave us natural resources. That's our thing. You know, for generations, our people have survived in these swamps. And our gift were these natural resources, these things that lurk underneath this swamp and in these wetlands. That's our gift. So we need to be thankful of that gift. At the same time, we must respect Mother Nature, because the world needs the things we get out of these swamps.
We begin with breaking news tonight, a mandatory evacuation after part of a bayou collapsed. Good evening. An entire community forced from their homes.
It's in Bayou Corne, and tonight experts have an idea of why the ground gave way.
The sinkhole developed on a Friday night, and we happened to be having dinner with brother-in-law and sister-in-law in Pelican Point. And a friend of mine called and said that we were under a mandatory evacuation, and it just kept getting worse and worse, you know.
When that sinkhole formed and those hydrocarbons came up, I knew I had smelt that before working in a petrochemical, and I knew it was bad. I mean, I knew something wasn't right.
They're being told this is dangerous, get out. And they need to get out. That land, those homes, it's useless now.
It's a tragedy when you're forced from your home through no fault of your own. The sinkhole was not an act of God, it was an act of man. It's undisputed that there was no hole under the earth. Texas Brine came in and made a hole. And when they made that hole, they made a mistake. You know, this is not an act of God, it's an act of man.
That afternoon, we got word out to the community and asked them to meet us here in the parking lot. And we stood on a tailgate of a truck and then advised everyone that we were indeed going under a mandatory evacuation.
Our objective is to get things done and get out of here as quickly as we can. That's the stress relief we're trying to provide. Unfortunately, it hasn't gone as swiftly as we'd have liked.
One of the scariest things I remember is hearing the National Guard Black Hawk helicopters flying around the hole at night with night vision to make sure that while we were sleeping, the hole wasn't growing and moving towards our houses.
Everybody's got to run home now and go pack and leave, and there's no idea when you're coming back.
I'm just so tired of the situation, want it to be over, and not to even think about sinkhole ever again.
And it's good. And with 11:55 left to play in the game. Timeout. Indians.
Over 20 years, you build a lot of relationships. It's sort of a retirement community here. So it's very nice and quiet and peaceful. The first time I heard anything about the sinkhole was through the communities. Somebody said, hey, you know, there's a sinkhole and there's a meeting at the boat landing this afternoon, and they're going to talk about it and tell us what happened. And that's when Marty Trish, the parish president, and John Boudreaux took time to explain to us what had happened, where it was located, and then told us that there was going to be a mandatory evacuation.
Mandatory evacuation means that there is a posed risk in the area, and that everyone should heed that evacuation notice. If those that do not heed the evacuation notice take the risk upon themselves.
John's very well trained in what he does, and so we absolutely rely on him for a whole lot of things, and that was one decision he felt really comfortable with making because of the unknown.
There was a faint odor in my neighborhood of what smelled like diesel. I think the wind was blowing in such a direction as to, I think the people north of the highway probably had a stronger smell of it than what we did, because I know there were a lot more reports coming from that side.
I smelled diesel, the odor of diesel, which I thought was diesel. It was crude, but it smelled just like diesel in my house. And it was a slight smell because my house is fairly airtight. And I got dressed, got ready for work, and I walked outside. When I opened the door, it was overwhelming. It was like almost choking.
So when the sinkhole developed, crude oil flowed to the surface and floated on the surface of the sinkhole, as well as huge quantities of natural gas came bubbling to the surface of the sinkhole, as well as continued in the bayous and under the homes and in the yards of the homes. As a result of particularly the crude, the people in the area were made very sick with acute impacts, headache, nausea, respiratory problems.
You know, on a hot, humid summer day in South Louisiana, and the heat's on, and there's not a lot of airflow, that oil and gas smell is around for several hours, especially early morning and night. So that was a very uncomfortable thing, and you know, and they said the air quality was okay. I just, you know, I find a hard time believing that. It's not, to me, it's not clean air. Now, it may not be reached a certain level of, you know, concerned exposure. There's nothing healthy about it, nothing.
I was working a project 12 miles from the Canadian border in northwest Montana. And Kathy called me and said something shook the whole house. Really? She said she walked out on the porch and she smelled diesel fuel. She looked around to see if a truck had turned over or something. And she called me later on that day and said they issued a mandatory evacuation to get out. So where in the world are you going to go?
So by that afternoon, the calls went out. Communication in a small area is not hard to do. You are either related, or you know them, or you grew up with them. So phone calls started going out that they were asking for mandatory evacuation within 24 hours. That evening, we were having a close friend's wedding in the neighboring town of Pankerville, which is maybe 10 miles from Bayou Corne.
We attended a wedding. At the wedding, we got a call saying that we were being placed under a mandatory evacuation. So we left the wedding, we came home, we packed clothes, we packed our medicine, clothes, and some important papers, because mandatory evacuation means to get out. It's not safe. So we decided to leave. So our biggest thing was where we're going to go. You know, we didn't have any place to go.
Texas Brine is in the brine production business. They produce brine for the needs of other chemical plants such as Dow Chemical, Occidental, Shintech, and supposedly have the expertise to be able to solution mine and produce the brine and provide them the brine.
It's been a struggle, and I understand it's been a struggle. And certainly we've made mistakes. We've done things that were not as efficient as they could have been. I'd like to express at least some gratitude for those within the community that have been respectful of the fact that it is unprecedented, and we didn't have a template or a blueprint to respond by. And I would hope, as I said before, I would hope that when we have this behind us, a good portion of them, maybe even a majority of them, will look back and think that, you know, it was a hard time, but we got through it, and I think Texas Brine did the right thing. That's my hope, and that's what I'm striving for.
I'll remember the good stuff about Bayou Corne, the people, the friends, but as far as the place, yeah, I miss the place, but I mean, it's not a good place to be. So, you know, you just have to move on.
It's kind of like a death, but this death really didn't die. It's the monster still out there, you know?
People sometimes ask, where can you go from here by boat? And I tell them, anywhere in the world. They look at me like I'm crazy. I say, yes. Go to Grand Bayou, hit Lake Verret, hit Lake Palourde, head to the Gulf, and the world is at your doorstep. And that truly is the beauty of Bayou Corne.